Hey everyone, just want to encourage you to find us on your listening platform and give us a rating. Anywhere you listen to that has a rating system, go on over and give us a rating and maybe leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. These ratings really do help. Thank you so much for listening. On to this week's episode.
Yo, guys. There's this common saying, don't make fun of me, that in space, no one can hear you scream. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, because there's no air.
What? But what about the spaceships in which these films take place in? Because they're not taking place outside the ships. They're taking place inside the ships.
If there's air in the spaceships, yeah.
So that tagline is inherently false.
No, it doesn't.
No.
But what if they're on a different spaceship? Then they can't hear you. What spaceship are you talking about? Space is vast.
Now that's a whole different thing.
But you brought it there in the first place.
No, the franchise, the tagline is, in space, no one can hear you scream. But here's the thing. These rarely ever take place outside in space, right? They're usually taking place inside a spaceship. So
you think it should say, in your spaceship, no one can hear you scream?
No, in your spaceship, they will hear you scream. That's what I'm trying to say. Although weirdly enough, the alien Romulus, not their tagline, but like in their trailer, is just like, in space, no one can hear you. Then it goes to alien. There's no period. So we're waiting for scream, and it just goes alien Romulus. I'm just like, so people are making fun of it. It's just like, in space, no one can hear you. Alien Romulus. I guess that's true.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever caught that. It was hilarious in my opinion.
Never caught that. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
funny.
In the first trailer, it was kind of a weird. A grammatical thing that they chose, but yeah, space, I can't hear you scream. Do you think this is an effective tagline?
Yes, absolutely. Unless you think about it as much as Rolando does, then that's inherently flawed. But if
it's inherently flawed, but I think it's very memorable. Like it sums up what this franchise is all about, which is space horror, typically known as cosmic horror.
Yes.
And that's it. Yeah,
and that's what we're talking about.
This is one of my favorite franchises of all time. So let's get it going. I'm Rolando.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Eddie Z.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals.
An original podcast
about unoriginality.
So before we begin, I have a couple of announcements. Announcement number one, thank you all who came out to our panel at FlameCon this past weekend. Yeah, this was this past weekend. So if you're listening when we release, it was this past weekend. We had some great
August 17th.
Attendees. Thank you. We had some great attendees. You guys were very attentive and very, very engaged with what we were presenting. So I'm so happy. And hopefully we have some new listeners out of that.
Yes, absolutely. And we hope to be back next year. And we hope to maybe do a live episode or something. You know, this one we focus on a particular topic, which you'll hear more about next week when we actually release that as kind of like our 6th anniversary special. So because next month will have been 6 years of doing this podcast. Isn't that kind of crazy? 6
years. Going strong. Stronger, some might even say, now that we're doing panels.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why we haven't been doing it sooner is something we got to talk to 6 years ago versions of ourselves. But
well, somebody didn't put it on their. Somebody didn't put it on their dream board 6 years ago.
We didn't have dream boards 6 years ago. We have them now. And no, actually, the full credit I give actually is to Mackenzie Green, who was on last episode in one of the podcasts that I listened to her on, the Taylor Strucker Show. She was talking about manifestations and making things happen for yourself. Well, that's not. Yes, she was talking about that, but I was already doing that when I heard this. However, one of the things she said was like how she loves going to like conventions, like cons and stuff, and how she really wants. She at one point decided she no longer wants to be an attendee. She wants to be like on the other side. And she made it happen for herself. And I was just like, you know what? She's right. I should make it happen to myself. I love one in New York Comic Con, but I have a 6-year-old podcast. Damn it. I have opinions. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a thought leader. I am a filmmaker too. Damn it. I mean, granted, documentary, but still, I understand the craft.
Yeah.
So here I am. And I made it happen. I manifested it.
Yeah, and it was a great first panel, and we hope to do more, and hope to release future episodes of these kind of things, and hope that some of you who are listening, if you want to, you can attend. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, and then I actually have one more thing I wanted to just bring up and just clear the air.
Okay.
Actually, two things. The first thing is, what were your quick thoughts on Deadpool since you weren't here? And me and Mackenzie were just convinced you just did not want to talk about Marvel for like an hour and a half. So,
as someone who doesn't watch any of it, it clearly was something that wasn't meant for
went
me.
over your head.
Which is just like, okay, there's all these references to other IPs that I'm not engaged with, not only just the other Deadpool movies, but other Marvel movies.
Blade.
But I also don't find. What about Blade?
I don't know. Did you?
You just randomly said Blade.
Did it not phase you? Like, but did it excite you when you saw Wesley Snipes again?
I'm not
Blade?
someone who's like super excited by like celebrities just randomly appearing in movies. So it didn't have. Again, I'm not the target audience.
You
so
say that
like,
until
cool.
You see Patti LuPone in some like art house film.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's different if it's like. No, but I think it was fine. I just don't find Deadpool funny. I thought Hugh Jackman was great though, but I find him to be way too edgelordy and just like way too straight man humor for me personally. I know it's for everybody, but I don't think it's very queer, or at least women queer relatable humor. So it's just Deadpool's not my thing.
All right. Yeah.
That's my that's where I would have stayed with that. So, but it's good that Mackenzie was on. She gave more of an educated background on a person who's actually seen these films and had a real opinion about it, with knowing everything that there is to know about all the different references and stuff. So it was good that she was on instead of me.
Most certainly. Oh yeah. No, she was a great guest last episode. If you haven't checked out the episode, definitely check it out. And the last thing I actually wanted to bring up actually is a little bit Marvel related, is we have now gotten word as to like why Beau DeMayo was fired from X-Men 97. And sadly, it is not good, right? And I'm kind of bummed out because he's a person of color and he's also a queer storyteller. And it's just like, wow, he really kind of, at least according to Disney, he shat the bed on this one. You know what I mean? He was sending, or it was basically, he just created a very sexually hostile work environment. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why he was let go and why they're rewriting season 2, despite the fact that he had already written most of it. And it's just a shame because X-Men 97 has been probably one of my favorite things we have covered this year on the podcast.
Wow.
So I just wanted to bring that up to everyone's attention since, I gushed about X-Men 87 and I do praise his writing, but it's unfortunately one of those things where now we have to separate the artists from the art, from the person. Is that the art from the person?
Their work goes. From their personal life. And this is a property that existed way before him and it will continue to live past him. So it shouldn't
I just love how queer he made it.
On it. Yeah. I'm sure someone else will continue to do that, which is a good thing.
Hopefully.
We hope.
Well, do we know this for sure? Sure. I know this for sure. We may get Disney's side. What is his side of the story?
His side is alleging that he's the one who actually released the first punch. Like he's saying, oh, they're rewriting season 2 because I released this photo, this like picture that this drawing of like myself as Cyclops and just like skimpy underwear, and Disney basically rebutted to be like, no, that is not at all why we fired you. And they kind of laid it all out on the ground, and their evidence is much more convincing than like his.
Why?
Right?
I mean, because they're a major company. I mean, they're major power.
So I'm not like that. Is not. I actually have been kind of. I'm not by any means, like, I am not pro-Disney by any means.
I know, but it's not being pro-Disney.
As a corporation.
It's not supposed to be like whether it's pro or not. It's what, like, this is one man, is a story, and then you have, like, this major company, this superpower, so to speak.
They, outside of the press releases that were released, it was the investigations from the Hollywood Reporter that also released this all this past week. right? So right before our convention and stuff. Actually, I was debating on if I was going to pick X-Men 97 as like my pro for what we're going to show up, but I was just like, oh, I'm not going to touch this right now because of everything going on with Disney and Bill DeMeo. So I kind of like stepped away from that. But yeah, no, the Hollywood Reporter's investigation is pretty damning and stuff. And I do recommend everyone read it. You know what? I'm going to put the link in the description.
All right. Well,
and look, guys. And I love it just because I am not on Disney's side at all. Like what they have done to, for example, if you guys haven't heard, the couple, someone died at one of their theme parks because of food related. It was allergy related, right? Like they told them this isn't in the food, and then it was, and this person died. Now the spouse is trying to sue. However, Disney is alleging it's just like, well, you guys agreed to take everything to arbitration when you guys signed up for Disney Plus 2 years ago. So like, we're going to go to arbitration. It's just like, this is absolutely diabolical as a corporation. Yeah, like they are truly just proving how heinous corporate America is. Absolutely. It's evil.
Yeah. Fucking Disney of all the companies too. It's just,
I know.
Now it's such a joke.
So yeah. So I bet, yeah. So by no means, Eddie, I'm not a corporate shill here. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But I think at the same time, sometimes artists need to be held accountable for their actions. And that's just an unfortunate thing.
Disney.
Oh, that's right. They also own this one. I forgot.
Yeah. Because, they just gobbled up so many different subsidiary companies. So not only Marvel, but they also gobbled up Fox and 20th Century Fox and all Fox things. And Alien is a 20th Century Fox franchise. It has been since the original Alien film from 1979. We are talking about the new kind of revival of the Alien anthology, which is Alien Romulus by Fede Alvarez. Just came out last weekend. It's a whole big franchise. So we're just going to probably talk a little bit about the most important film being the first one and some thoughts about the other ones, and then focus on Romulus.
Yes. Yeah, it's a shame we can't really talk too much about Aliens because this film takes place before Aliens. And
yes,
I think
and that's
Aliens
not even
is
a
my
spoiler
favorite out of the franchise. Oh yeah, no, it's not. It's because they're not that related.
Yeah, so the trailers, they're not really like concerned with telling you where in the timeline it takes place. You kind of have to watch the film for that. But if you kind of just do a basic lookup of it, it will tell you it takes place between Alien and Aliens. So focus more on Alien. But we're going to share our thoughts on some of the other films because I'd love to know what your top 3 Alien rankings are. And this is, should we exclude or should we include the Alien versus Predator films? Because those are technically separate from the Alien mythology.
I don't think they're canon at all.
Yeah, so I don't think so either.
Like
so maybe we should just... I know you love those movies, but we should exclude them.
Whoa.
You love Alien vs. Predator.
I love the game Alien vs. Predator. I do not like the movies.
Oh, okay. My mistake. I guess, I've never played it.
The games are so good. Yeah.
Okay.
The games predate the film also.
So we'll focus on the real canon films of the Aliens anthology, which are Alien from 1979, Aliens from 1986, Alien 3 from 1992, Alien Resurrection from 1997. Then we got Prometheus in 2012, Alien Covenant in 2017, and now Alien Romulus. 3 of those films were directed by Ridley Scott, a filmmaker who I do not particularly respond to. He's someone who I've just never really emotionally connected with any of his films other than Thelma and Louise.
That was Ridley Scott?
That is Ridley Scott, yes.
Did you know this, Eddie?
Yeah, I did.
You knew this? Mm-hmm. Wow, I did not know this. I've never seen Thelma and Louise, to be honest.
Oh, well, then you should totally see it. Yeah, it's a great movie. I'm definitely waiting for it to get remade. It's inevitable. So other films, he's pretty prolific though. And he's still making movies. 1986. He's 86 years old. He's still making movies. We're going to be covering one of his new releases later on in the year because he's making a sequel to his own film Gladiator, right?
I can't wait. Other films, it's going to be such a train wreck, but I actually am excited to see this train wreck.
Same, actually. I'm excited to see
the men look so hot, and that's genuinely, truly the only reason why I'm watching it.
Yeah, it looks almost kind of dragish, like drag queenish. So I'm excited for some of those outlandish performances that I hope we get. He also did Blade Runner. He also did Black Hawk Down. Like I said, Thelma and Louise and Gladiator. He's known for doing like big Sword and Sandal movies, big epic movies. So recently he did do the Napoleon film. He did House of Gucci. He did American Gangster.
Wait,
and
he did the House of Gucci with Lady Gaga?
Yeah, that was him.
I didn't know that either. That did not.
There you go.
That did not get any promotion or anything. I don't feel like I saw his name attached to that movie at all.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I saw it.
Interesting. You saw the film?
No, I saw his name attached to it, but no, I didn't see it. I was not. Again, I'm not someone who's like, oh, the new Ridley Scott movie's out. In fact, part of me is like, hard pass.
I wanted to watch it just because that trailer looked terrible and great at the same time. I mean, come on, iconic line like, "It's my name, sweetie," and then Lady Gaga just going like, "Our name, sweetie." Come on, it's just like
that was
delicious.
Pretty good. That was pretty good.
Thank
Rolando.
you.
I mean, as far as a terrible Lady Gaga impersonation, that was very good.
It was a terrible Lady Gaga because she was terrible in that one. I had been.
That's great. Yeah, so that's the second film that you've watched a trailer of Ridley Scott's and was like, it looks terrible, and I can't wait to see it. So maybe that's how you feel about his films.
Yeah, it's good trailers. Terrible. It's good, terrible trailers.
Well, so he directed the first film. He directed Alien, and it was his big claim to fame. He had only directed like The Duelists, maybe something else right before it. Alien came out in 1979. This is 2 years after Star Wars. It's kind of the whole reason that it got made. The guy who wrote it, Dan O'Bannon, who also co-wrote it with Ronald Shusett, but he's the one who came up with it. He had just made like a science fiction film with John Carpenter's thesis film coming out of college called Dark Star. And he was super interested in science fiction, but he was worried that this was going to become a monster movie. And like, it wasn't until it got into Ridley Scott's hands that it became Alien. And it became, it was a sensation when it came out, especially because after Star Wars, they were like, anything set in space, we'll do it. We want it. So thanks Star Wars, that's why we got this. Aliens from 1986, James Cameron, completely different filmmaker and writer, who was like, you know what, I think we should make a sequel to this, but instead of it being a horror film, we should make it an action movie. And it was
what a brilliant choice.
And a brilliant choice. And
I think so.
I think to me, Aliens is the best of the anthology. I know a lot of people neck and neck, Aliens. I'm more Aliens, but
I think Alien is the better film, but Aliens is the much more entertaining film.
Yes.
That's ultimately how I feel. It's just like, Alien is definitely like that film. That is a film, right? Like it's quiet, it's slow, it's quiet, it's like actually terror inducing. Aliens is just a thrill ride, and it's so much fun, and it's so good, and it has like one of the best like female non-binary characters, I think, from like the 80s.
Yes,
right? Like,
yes. One
like
of the
soldiers. We didn't need to know a backstory. We didn't need to know anything about her. I don't even know if she identified. I mean, nowadays she probably wouldn't have even identified as a her, right? But she was identifying as a her back then in that film, and but she was just such a great depiction of like a woman that I remember at that point I had not seen before, right? She was just butch, but she was threatening, and she was just like absolutely a scene stealer.
Yeah, and she was badass because most of the other guys, they were pretty pathetic in that film. If you think about it, like James Cameron really wanted to show this dynamic between these strong women and these loserish men, like game over, man. And I think to comedic effect, but also, in the 80s too, very much against typecast. And if you look at Ellen Ripley in the first film, and then you see what James Cameron did, the reason why Ellen Ripley is one of the greatest, protagonists in any movie is because of what happened in Aliens. That whole character kind of arc that he completely changed and gave her way more dynamic things to do, and just gave her way more to work with. Now she's even more badass in the second one. And of course, her classic line in the second one, "Get away from her, you bitch." The best line in all of these movies. So he nailed sequels, and he continued to nail sequels. James Cameron, I will say it forever. He knows how to make a sequel. So it continued on with David Fincher's Alien 3, which was supposed to be the close. It was supposed to end the trilogy. And it did so well financially that they couldn't resist bringing it back, even though the way that Alien 3 ends, spoiler, this was supposed to be about Ellen Ripley. And Sigourney Weaver even was like, look, it's all about her trying to survive. So it should properly end with her, everyone can survive and then she will sacrifice her life, right?
Mm-hmm.
A really fitting ending, kind of like with Toy Story 3 being a fitting ending, but Hollywood can't help themselves. And then they come back with a part 4, and part 4 was like, okay, interesting choices were made.
Very interesting choices.
Just to continue the series.
It was... I don't know why Alien 5 though, Alien Resurrection does feel so much fresher though than the other ones, because like I think it does take place even further into the future, if I remember correctly. And I mean, it's about cloning.
It does, it's about
cloning.
It's got that great scene. The great scene of seeing all the Ellen Ripley clones in it.
Yo, that was a gross scene too. And then she breaks them like Jesus when he was at temple, just flipping tables.
No, that's not appropriate reference at all.
Yeah, just like Jesus.
I smell a title.
You know that Alien Resurrection was written by Joss Whedon?
And Resurrection and Jesus. Come on, it all makes sense. Wait, shut up. I did not know that it was written by Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon, yeah. Mm-hmm. His big Hollywood break, as you would say. And then after that, he was like, you know what? I just want to make Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And he did. So
God bless him for it.
Yeah.
Although he's problematic now, too, though. So, yeah.
So Alien Resurrection, it was somewhat of a financial hit, not a critical one, and the franchise went dead for a little bit until, one, Alien vs. Predator was made, but then Prometheus was made, and this was now the prequel series to the first Alien film as to how the xenomorph came to be, because now Ellen Ripley's, we don't need her anymore. Her timeline is done because the star of the show is the xenomorph.
Yeah. I mean, well, come on. That is such great character design. Of course. It's like biomechanical, organic. It blends in to its surroundings. It's supposed to be the perfect killing machine. It does hold like a very popular rating amongst like cinephiles who love horror. Like horror, I forget what they're called. Goreheads? What are horror movie fans called?
I'm not familiar with like a specific term used for them, so.
Oh, I thought there was. I thought the community had like their own word. All right, well, anyway.
There might be. I'm not an active member then of that community, so I'm sorry.
And you call yourself a cinephile, my God.
I call myself a cinephile, not a gorehead. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody kind of, in theory, wanted this film, especially after we got the Alien versus Predator. And you're right, the xenomorph, it's iconic. It's truly scary. The character design of the xenomorph is one of the most successful and brilliant designs that ever happened for a fantasy creature in cinema. And so, of course, naturally, you'd think we want more of it, and we want to see the prequel of how it came to be. I personally thought Prometheus was hot garbage, but a lot of other people thought it was good. So
I'd like to talk to one of these people, because even in my friend group, not one of us liked it.
It's just not good. It's just not good. And of course, they got a sequel. Of course, they got a sequel.
It did.
It's Alien.
Well, Michael Fassbender was a hot piece of ass back then. You know what I mean? I mean, he technically is still, but he was so popular when Prometheus came out. Like he was coming off of Magneto.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Inglourious Bastards, the movie where he has the sex kink. Can't remember the name of it.
Shame.
It's interesting. Yes, very good. If you think about like the people who were the biggest stars, like not only 10 years ago, they don't have the same weight that they do now, like how quickly things change. Like, for instance, Channing Tatum is not really the bank draw he used to be, which is...
Was he ever really?
I know the Magic Mike films really did it for him. And he was in some comedies that were successful, 21 Jump Street.
Okay.
I remember, he makes a guest appearance at the end of... spoiler... Fast forward 30 seconds if you don't want to know, but he's like in The Hateful Eight. He makes like an appearance like halfway through the film, more than halfway through the film. So it was like a big deal too. And now he was in Fly Me to the Moon, complete box office failure. He's going to be in this movie called Blink Twice. Is anyone going to see that? Who knows?
Wait, I do want to see Blink Twice. That's the one with Janelle Monáe, right?
No.
Is it Estelle? Who is it?
I'm not sure who the lead is. It's by Zoe Kravitz, not Chloe Kravitz.
Oh, maybe that's who. Maybe.
But the actress is Naomi Aki.
Oh, okay. No, I'm not familiar with her. I remember seeing the trailer and being interested.
Yeah, but the promotions have not been good. It doesn't seem like they have a lot of faith in it. So just like with The Crow.
The Crow is another one. Guys,
Gina Davis is in it.
Gina Davis is in this. Don't blink.
Yeah, blink twice.
Blink twice.
Blink twice.
Christian Slater. Christian Slater's in it.
That's it. Yeah, I remember Christian Slater was in the trailer too, and I was interested because I do like Christian Slater. I don't know why. Like, he's grown on me as a performer as of late.
Yeah, Christian Slater, he's good. I like him too. Quick note, can you hear my cat snoring? Because he's passed out on my lap and he's snoring quite loudly.
I don't hear him.
Okay, well, if it's getting picked up, that is my cat who is snoring because he has a deviated septum. So anyway, do you guys have a personal favorite of the Alien franchise that isn't like Alien or Aliens, or do you think it's the more interesting of the bunch?
I can tell you which one I've seen the most.
Which one?
Alien Resurrection.
Really?
It's always on cable, right?
It was always on TV. It was on TV so much, and I would always catch it, despite the fact that I wasn't necessarily entertained, but it was so weird that I just kept watching it. I mean, the half human, half alien mixed xenomorph that comes out and then like kills the xenomorph queen. It was just gnarly. And the scene where like she's like, I think she kisses the alien, right? Because she's technically the mother. She kisses the alien, and then she like, what's it called? Like blows a hole through it to like open up a hole in the ship, and then he gets sucked. It was gross. It was such a gross movie, but it was so fun to watch, I guess, right? Like, it's like, by no means, like, does the plot make sense? Barely, but
no. It's the most unhinged for sure.
Yeah.
Because like the whole thing is that they clone Ripley and they use DNA like samples before she died, but they combine it with the xenomorphs. And
they didn't combine it with the xenomorphs. They extracted her DNA because she was infected with the xenomorph, so they were trying to extract the xenomorph DNA from her. That's what it is. Yes, and that's why they have that human alien hybrid kind of thing, right? Which kind of,
because she grows up with an embryo in it, right?
Yes. And so the interesting thing about it is just like, I guess in like now that film does kind of mess up like overall the story, because like as far
100%.
It does, because like, you know, if you go back to as far as Prometheus, right? Because that's technically further down in the timeline, and now with Alien Romulus, like Weyland-Yutani has had their hands in alien DNA for forever. So like, why do they need Ellen Ripley? You know what I mean?
Weyland-Yutani being the company that wants to pretty much use this. They're the big bad. They're a corporation.
They're the big bad. They're the Disney of this universe.
There we go. Weyland-Yutani is the Disney of the franchise. Title of the episode right there. What's so great though about Alien Resurrection too is that, and maybe this is why Sigourney Weaver got convinced enough, other than the paycheck, to come back, was because it was like, you're not playing Ripley, you're playing the 8th clone of her, and you could take this into so different directions. So she looks like she's insane most of this movie.
Yeah.
Like you could see it in her eyes. She just portrays it completely differently. She gets to have a lot of fun with it. And
she gets to be really good at basketball.
So ridiculous.
Yes.
Like, and it's like, that's the primary thing I remember from that.
The basketball scene, right?
Yeah, the basketball scene, the lesbian scene, and the bursting of her chest scene.
Yes. And of course, humanoid thing.
Yeah.
But I remember the basketball scene before I remembered that. So, yeah.
The scene I remember the most, actually, I was going to say, the scene that I remember the most, though, is when the scientists are kind of like, they're like scheming and laughing, right? And the aliens, their plot to get out. Again, we're supposed to know that the xenomorph is like smart, right? So what do? They get into it, like they start killing each other. So, because they know that their acid blood will corrode the iron, and they can like escape. And that's how the xenomorphs escape and wreak chaos on that lab.
Yeah, it's just so ridiculous. Trying to make sense out of Alien Resurrection is a fool's errand. But that's what's also kind of so fun about it. So I think
for sure
all this time has passed that we're able to kind of like look back on it for the mess it is and be like, we appreciate you. So
yeah, I really do wish I had the time to rewatch it. I just did not have the time to revisit, but I don't need to because it's so ingrained in my memory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's true. Yeah. And yeah, Winona Ryder being a clone too and everything. So good stuff.
Now, Eddie, you said a lesbian scene. So they did, I don't remember them actually lesing out, but I remember them kind of lesing out a little bit. Did they les out?
Wait, let's go back here a little bit. So I thought Winona Ryder she was one of the artificial intelligence.
Yeah, she was a synth.
The synth, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but who was the clone then? It was
Ripley.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to say a synth. I called her a clone. My apologies.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
And then didn't she like have sex with the mother? With mother, like the prime, the queen.
Oh, no, she didn't have sex with mother. Oh, see, I don't remember that.
You don't remember that? I found that was the most weirdest scene.
You might be right about that, man. It might have been like some sort of like weird thing. But I also feel like actually, because I'm also now thinking about Winona, like getting connected to the computer system was also kind of like this orgasmic thing that she had also. This movie was very, very weird. I rewatched the shit out of this so much. There's bits and pieces of it that I just don't remember.
Yes. So she did.
She did.
In Alien 3, Alien Rip carries inside her after being attacked by the face hugger, the company, blah, blah, blah.
That's Alien 3. Yeah, she had that. That's why she was impregnated. The chest burst happens at the end of Alien 3. She like jumps into the fire.
Yes.
And then the chest bursts come out and she like looks at it and then like falls into the fire. Yeah, that's it. That's Alien 3. Great movie. I mean, look, the movies are, I mean, for all the respect that Alien gets and Aliens, the movies do just jump off the deep end, but like they are still entertaining to watch. I will admit that. Like,
absolutely.
Like, they truly are. Oh, except Prometheus. Prometheus is one that I just saw, it was one and done for me. I'm just like, never again. I cannot.
Yeah, well, because it took itself too seriously, which I think is also kind of the problem. It was like, nobody wanted this story. I personally didn't want this story. All we kind of want is, badassery of the xenomorph. Because again, the xenomorph is the star. So you got to give us that.
And also,
because
I find it there's something so much more satisfying to kind of have them still be in the mystery of what these creatures are.
Mm-hmm.
Not describe their origins so in detail, because it's like the senselessness of like space is dangerous, right? Yeah. Space can kill. Space can very much kill, and being
absolutely
in this whole like situation where it's like, what are these fucking shits? And they're just like wreaking havoc and not being, I have no idea like how to control them or like where they come from. And then you get a very detailed description of their origin, like, and it's like, ugh, it's too
which we didn't need. And they're trying to also, not just that, but I thought it was a weird choice to like focus on the space jockey, right? So if you're not familiar, the space jockey is the giant creature that we see in Alien that's kind of manning the ship that we saw like had his chest bursted out and like where the alien sacks are found, right? It's giving that a backstory that we kind of didn't need. That's the kind of horror element that just went unexplained for all these films, right? It just existed and the film franchise forgot about it almost, and they decided we're going to give this like some background, and it's just like it didn't need it. Like that cosmic horror, let it be. The fact that like these xenomorphs took down that ginormous of a creature is scary enough, right? And then we're giving it meaning, like why did this happen, that we just didn't need. And I think the only good thing of that film was the scene where our main character, she's like having an abortion. She's getting the alien embryo out of her, because that scene was the only one. Yeah, because it actually induced some terror, and it was some body horror, right? Like it was just like a horrifying thing, and it was just like claustrophobic. It was just a good scene,
and it was also like talk about, because you don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think like how.
Like, how do you get this out of you?
Yes, because we were always under the impression, once that sucker's in, that's it. There's done no way out. You're done for.
Yeah.
And she was like, she figured out a fucking way of doing it. And we're like, fuck, this is disgusting. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah. That's the only really memorable scene of the movie. That was good. There are memorable scenes, but they're horrible. Like, I think Charlize Theron saying to Weyland-Yutani, goodbye, father. Like, we didn't know this was her dad. Like, come on. Like, we saw this coming a million miles away.
Do you think that this whole franchise is just based off of the horror and the terror of having to give childbirth?
Yeah.
Because so much of it is based on that.
I never thought of it that way.
I mean, it could be,
maybe.
real body horror and stuff, especially horror movies. It's always about the horror of being a woman, right? A woman's usually the main character or is the target and is the last surviving person. So it's hard to be a woman, and it is truly a horrifying experience, especially when from a man's point of view, what it would be like to be a woman in this world. It's funny, though, because Dan O'Bannon, the original creator, he came up with the chest bursting scene because of his experience with Crohn's disease. So there is some sort of familiarity.
That's actually one of my favorite scenes in cinema, because when they filmed it, it was kind of almost like a one take because they didn't prepare the crew. Only the actor who had the chest burster coming out. Yes, they were also there. Those reactions that we see on camera are genuine and real. Like, they are horrified. And it makes it so impactful. Like, that's why that scene is so memorable, when he just like falls to the table and he's just like gyrating and just like, it's such a good scene.
And, it reminds me of when we did The Exorcist last year I think it was last year or 2 years ago, with that really terrible reboot attempt that they did at it that I think they're abandoning now.
Exorcist
the problem
believer.
is that the original Exorcist came at a time where nobody knew what to anticipate from it. Nobody knew what it could be. And when they got it, it was just nothing can compare with that first time. And all subsequent films have kind of, failed in comparison because nothing can really beat that first time, which is why it was also so smart of what James Cameron did for Aliens, because he knew he couldn't quite compete with the original film, so he had to do something completely different. So you can argue that this franchise is one that is so hard to duplicate with that first time, with that scene of seeing it, like, we know exactly what's coming. So part of you is like, how can you successfully do a franchise like this when there are no surprises? There is no real like mystery as to what this creature is or what it does to you. Why is it over? Why is it hugging his face, etc. But, like, so what should it do? Should it focus more on like different exploits of a character named Ellen Ripley or other characters? Or should we just go back to, what we kind of want to see, which is just the xenomorph attacking unknown people? So, after the Prometheus films and all that, which were mixed, a lot of people do think it's good. But I personally think it's hot garbage. Disney was like, we want to continue making these films. After they bought 20th Century Fox, they were like, this is a franchise we have to continue on. Just like with Predator. And they wanted, originally, just like they did with Prey, they wanted it to be a Hulu film.
Oh, so this was supposed to be like a Hulu direct?
This was supposed to be on Hulu, yeah. And Fede Alvarez, has talked about how lucky he feels that right before they went on filming, they're like, actually, we want to release this theatrically. So they just changed their minds. And they pushed, and then
So I know that before this movie got greenlit, there was Neil Blomkamp was the one who was supposed to work on an Alien 5 that was supposed to be like directly related to the Alien Resurrection. However, Neil Blomkamp's like failure after failure kind of like made the studio, and this is before the Disney merger. They just like pulled the plug on him. I don't remember what his last failure was, but was it Elysium? Or did he have something after Elysium?
I'm not quite sure. Let's look it up really quick.
Neil Blomkamp. I remember he did District 9.
Yes. He did Gran Turismo, which came out last year to not a lot of fanfare. He did do Elysium,
Chappie.
like you said. Chappie was a...
That's it. I think that's a movie that like was the one that was just like, we're pulling the plug on you, buddy.
Yes.
But he was supposed to do an Alien 5.
Yeah,
that was going to have Sigourney Weaver.
Films have not done well. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
So she's not done with it. That's so interesting.
I was hoping that we would have gotten a Ellen of some sort, an Ellen Ripley, because Sigourney Weaver is still, I don't know how old she is, but last I saw her was no, I know she's still alive, but she's not at an age yet where we can discount her, right?
Why would we discount her, period? Okay. What do you mean by that?
I meant like I think she's still like active. Like you could see her still like actually being in an action film.
I mean, she wasn't
unlike Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones, who they did put, but then they used a lot of de-aging on him.
That's what I'm saying. But I think that we could still bring Sigourney Weaver in her age, and I still feel that she could still act the shit out of it and like it's just like, hell yeah, I'm 60 plus and I'm still shooting guns. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Hey, we can take
and that's what I want to see.
We could take dead people and put them in our movies, as this movie shows.
I don't want to see that. I do not. That's what I don't want to see.
Guys, spoilers here, and if you don't want to know anything about Alien Romulus without seeing it, we're going to get into it right now. That's interesting because the movie begins right after, essentially, the ending of Alien. You know, when she puts herself in sleep, whatever it's called. Mm-hmm. The Nostromo. The Nostromo, the ship that she was on, is now, torn to bits because now she's on a course to Earth, which is what she hopes for. We know what happens to her in Aliens, right? After 57 years of that, she gets picked up and isn't quite on Earth. But right after it, a Weyland-Yutani spaceship comes across the damages. That could have been a good opportunity to see her just floating in space. But
correct. Yeah, it could have been.
That would have been, but whatever.
That would have also made Weyland-Yutani even more sinister because it's just like there should be like a scene where it's just like detecting life in this pod, and they're like, no, focus on this over here. They could have just given us that because we already know
it would have been the intern who was in charge of it instead, and it's like, we detect life there. It's like, no, that's just a glitch.
Yeah, a little.
Damn. So first opportunity missed right there, right? So this huge ship, which is called Romulus and Remus, reference to the Roman mythology.
Mm-hmm.
It takes pretty much it finds an organic object that contains the xenomorph or the remains of the xenomorph in it, and obviously we know right off the bat what its intentions are because hopefully most of us have seen it. Actually, it works so if you haven't seen it, if you're new. When we saw this movie together, when we saw children were there, and I'm sure they've never seen an alien movie before. So it can work if you don't know the story. But anyway, so now we cut to our main character.
I was going to say, to the movie's credit, it does do a pretty good job of just like, even if you haven't watched the previous ones, like you kind of don't need to. This movie I think this movie does a pretty good job of just being a standalone film, which I would say is a success if you're trying to reboot a franchise.
Absolutely.
It's still referential, but it's still able to hold its own.
Because already you can see whatever they took out is so alien. Mm-hmm. The whole way it looks, it's already like, oh, this is not man-made. This is something.
Yeah, you get the gist of it. Yeah, for sure. And the movie begins with a lot of silence, which I appreciated. They really utilize silence very well. And the whole concept of in space, no one can hear you scream. I really thought the movie was going to begin with, that like, they were zooming in on a spaceship. And then when you came across the window, I thought we were going to cut to somebody there screaming. And that was going to be kind of like our cold open. And it was going to be a reference to in space, no one can hear you scream. It was like so silent.
Yeah.
But second opportunity missed. So we have a main character. Her name is Rain, played by Kaylee Spiney. And she is on a colony. She's inhabiting this planet where other space colonists are, and she's trying to work up all these hours for her to exit the planet. And of course, they're like, nope, we just raised it. You have to work double it now. And she's stuck, right?
I would have murdered someone, by the way. I would have shot that lady dead right there in the spot. At that point, just execute me. Just execute me. There's like, you're going to be leaving me on this cancer-ridden planet?
Yeah.
Horrific. Absolutely horrific.
Weyland-Yutani truly are just the
worst. yeah, exactly. Like I don't think Disney knew when they greenlit this. What is?
I know, right? It's like we all know this is about you guys. So she has a adoptive brother who's actually a synthetic. In this world, too, synthetics are pretty much like how are they?
Androids?
Just like
humanoids?
Androids? Yeah. There you go.
They're androids. They're
not really people, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have androids in every version of Aliens, so this is not something new to the franchise. So
and their tell is that they bleed white. So that's how we know. And that it was a big plot point in Alien because the synth is ultimately the one who betrays the entire crew for Weyland-Yutani's purposes, and as a result, in all subsequent movies, like Sigourney Weaver's character will always have hesitations around synths, as us as the audience will too, despite knowing that there are good synths.
Yeah, but then I think that becomes for me becomes the movie gimmick that they just hold on to, because it seems the real bad guy is always the synth.
Not always. Bishop was a good synth in Aliens, but I think you might be right. He might be the only good synth that we've had. No, Winona Ryder was also a good synth. So maybe it's like bad, good, bad, good. Because you're right. Michael, was that his name or David in
David.
In the Prometheus movies? He was just evil. That was not even like bad. He was just straight up just like diabolical.
And he was in the next one too after that.
Yeah. And Alien coming in, right.
Well, it's all about how they're programmed, which this movie is pretty much playing with the entire film. What is he programmed to do now? What is he programmed to do now? So Andy is programmed to pretty much take care of Rain. That's his only objective. And because her father, who's now dead, found him. So she's totally bummed out because she has to stay on this planet. She thought she was getting out. Well, her ex-boyfriend pretty much is like, hey, you guys want to go be pirates on an abandoned ship and steal some parts so we can get the fuck out of here? And who is he saying this to? He's saying this to Rain and Andy, who they need to help get them access on the ship. His friend's girlfriend, who, by the way, did you realize they were a boyfriend and girlfriend? Because according to Wikipedia, they are.
Wait, the pregnant girl was...
No, the pregnant girl is Tyler's sister.
Oh, wait a minute. You're telling me the bald Asian character is...
That was Bjorn's girlfriend.
I thought... I just read that she was a lesbian. I saw no sexual chemistry between them whatsoever.
Yeah, so the movie does a terrible job at getting that across, but apparently they are in a relationship, which is also why he was so later on in the film gung-ho about her being safely on board.
Right, right.
So
they didn't need to be in a relationship for me to understand why he was so adamant on trying to rescue her.
I agree with that, but apparently so,
serious?
according to this.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So maybe, Wikipedia's plot summary is wrong, right? But
it could be like, or maybe that could be like the script, and it's just like it's maybe Fede Alvarez
decided to downplay that. Yeah. So whatever. So we got Bjorn. He's British. He's a prick. We got Tyler. He's kind of like the leader. He's got a sister who's totally frail, and we find out that she's pregnant and she's holding it a secret from Tyler. And we got Navarro, who may or may not be queer, who's the pilot of the ship. Who's kind of
I read her as queer, and now I'm kind of like, well, now I'm confused. Anyway, I did want to say right off the bat, Tyler was actually, I want to say this about the entire cast, but Tyler was so handsome. It was a little off-putting, and I actually do think the problem with that, there's one qualm I have with the film. Everyone looks too young to be living this hardened life on this colony that, like, I know Eddie had done his research on this, and he told me that this actress and Sigourney Weaver were only 2 years apart in terms of like how old they were when they first were playing in these films. But even then, I think they should have cast someone older to play younger, because like you're living on a colony where you're like mining, you're probably going to be like old, much more weathered, much more tired. Although I just realized this planet doesn't get any sun, so maybe that's why they have such good skin. No sunlight.
Yeah, and maybe they've been doing it since they were, children. Who knows?
I'm just saying. But no, the cast was so young and pretty that I was just like, I don't know if this is what I want in my Alien movies. I want them to look like Ron Perlman. That's the thing, right?
It's also, let's compare it to 1979, and let's compare it to 70s movies in general, when everyone looked like they were over 40. Even if they were in their 20s, they looked like they were over 40.
Yeah.
And you had Harry Dean Stanton was there, who's always looked old. Oh gosh, I can't remember some of the other people. Ian Holm, who makes a quote appearance in this film, they all just looked way, way older. And there's something about like the youth. Well, yes, they are very much younger than probably they should be in order to be quote unquote convincing in their roles.
Well, they look younger. The age,
that's the thing.
Like I said,
young people
like,
now look younger than young people did back then, so it's that on top of it.
Yes, our people look younger than they did back then. However, TikTok would have you believe otherwise because they're getting so much fillers that now they're looking older. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Well, Kaylee Spaney, she's 25, but, she just recently played Priscilla Presley. And Priscilla Presley, when you first meet her in that movie, is 14. She looks convincingly as 14, so she just looks young.
Young, yeah.
But, so anyway, so she's got Andy, and they need him, but they are not happy about the fact that they need this synth who's on board with them. One person in particular, Bjorn, is very unhappy about it and is taunting Andy all the way while they make their way onto the ship. And then pretty much we know what's on this ship, and we know that they're going to find the remains of the xenomorph on this, and that it's going to kill them one by one. And the whole movie is just a question of who's going to get killed first and in what way, essentially.
And who's going to survive.
And who's going to survive. How many will survive, us, if any.
Yeah. And us as a movie group, we did go see, we went to see this together. We kind of had our theories as to like who would survive. I think we were all adamant. It's just like, we know there would be at least the female survivors. I mean, I feel like that's just typical of the Alien franchise outside of Alien 3, the lone female survivor. Because Prometheus and Covenant, Eddie, both of them had the female lead survive at the end, right? She's like the final girl?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, that's been true for all of them except for Alien 3, where Ellen Ripley dies.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
And of course, Hollywood has this thing where if we start the story with one character, we pretty much know that character is going to survive to the end. We start the story with Kaylee Spaney, so we know. And how wonderful would it be if she actually died? If you set up the whole trope of movie language where it's like, this is our main character, and then they don't survive. Man,
yeah, they kill off halfway, and then we follow a new main character, much like Psycho.
That would be so great. Spoiler.
I agree. Okay.
Hopefully everyone here is listening has seen that. But yeah, so I expected this movie to be very more leaning towards horror in an Alien kind of way, because every film since has kind of taken on different hybrid of genres and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think Prometheus being a little bit more dramatic than horror or anything. So I was like, return to horror. Cool. Xenomorph is scary again. Let's get gore and let's get violence. And in that sense, I was disappointed by the film. But
explain.
Because it wasn't that. And anything that I did see that, gave me like some violence or some grotesqueness, I've kind of seen before. And there are a lot of things in this film I've seen before, which is not necessarily one of my problems of the film. But I wanted it to be more gory. I was like, give me a horror film. Like that big scene that they're promoting in the trailer where she puts the light on her skin and you see it. Like, I wanted there to be blood everywhere.
Yeah. So I will say this, like the Twitterverse has been like hyping up the gore and the violence of this movie. I'm just like, I don't know. This movie was a little tame in my opinion. Like I was expecting more. So I don't know if that was just like,
jaded?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if it's just like expectations were set too high for me, or if maybe my expectations were set too high. But that was interesting, right? I also too was expecting way more gore, way more violence and stuff, and I think it was actually kind of a little bit on the subdued side.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's necessarily. I don't know, because like for me, ultimately, like I'm very mixed on this film. I actually found myself liking it, and actually the more time I've had away from it, I've actually found myself appreciating it more and more. To be quite honest, I actually. Like the way I explained it when we were watching after we came out of the theater was, I think if you break up the film in its 3 acts, like act 1, I'm in that ride. I'm here. They're world building. I'm learning to like these characters. I'm loving the setting that we're in. Right. It was giving me that cosmic horror. Like we're in a spaceship. It's abandoned. It's kind of like what happened here. Act 2. I think the movie starts to stumble a bit because Act 2 starts to move a little slower than I would want. It's really trying to get from one point to another. You're chased by face huggers, which wasn't as like scary. We had a couple of good scares here, but it didn't feel like we were living in that horror. Then in Act 3 is where we get into like the action film, right? So I think Act 1.
What is Act 2? Talk about what begins Act 2 and what ends Act 2. I want to know that part that doesn't work.
Act 2 for me would probably be more so after they have found the things that they're looking for. So they're already on the ship. I think Act 2 begins when they have found the cryogenic pods that they need, but they know, okay, this doesn't have enough gas to get us through, so we have to get to another place and find it, right? Because that is soon where they will encounter their first face huggers. That's where they will soon like shit starts hitting the fan, right? Andy becomes a bad synth because he gets a chip implanted to him from Rook, and he turns to more Weyland-Yutani side. That would be Act 2. Act 2 is everything leading up until I think Rain encounters the xenomorph for the first time when they see each other from the room. That would be, I would say, the beginning of Act 3 for her, for the film.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So I think this movie very much depends on what your expectations are and what you want from this movie. Now, if you want like kind of a rehash of the first film and something that's just like the xenomorph doing its thing, I don't see why this movie wouldn't work for you. But if you want something a little bit more like original, then maybe you'll be disappointed by this film. Like, I can't quite put my finger on the way that this film disappoints because it's so similar in a lot of ways to every other Alien movie, particularly the first one.
Right.
That I'm like, so what does it not have? Is it too much? Like, I don't know. What do you want from it?
So I guess the thing, that's a great question because I'm trying to think of what I wanted from the movie. I wanted more alien and like a xenomorph and stuff. Like I wanted to see more xenomorph like hunting and like killing, right? I think maybe the small number of crew members that we had kind of limits that, right? So we only one person dies from the chest burster that got implanted with the face hugger. I kind of wanted that scene to last a little longer, right? Because like there was something so horrible of like seeing the alien like literally penetrate your mouth and like just like basically face fucking you a little, right? It's like kind of grotesque, and they kind of cut away from it a little sooner than I would have hoped, right? For a movie that was hyping up a lot of like the shock. And I guess I wanted to see, so all right, we already lost one person that way. We're gonna lose one person fighting a xenomorph, right? I just feel like, I don't know, like the small number of crew members that we had kind of limits how much action we're going to get, which is interesting because like Alien also had like a small number of crew members, but they were able to, I think it was better paced in terms of like the killings, because I think in this film, once the facehuggers attack, I think like 3 go within the next 20 minutes, and then the other 3 don't go until the very end of the movie, right? So it's just like a huge middle where we don't have like much happening except like running for your life almost.
But then there's also more of a mystery for the audience because the audience doesn't know what's going on. Where like in this movie, we're just waiting for what we already know is going to happen.
Yeah.
Which I think then, in terms of then expectation, the reason why I think this movie might not work for some people, and I'm like you too, I'm pretty mixed on it. But I think that at the end of the day, people want to relive the feeling of seeing these movies for the first time, and they're realizing that that's never going to happen.
Well, I don't know, because I kind of got a little bit of that feeling of just like, oh, what the hell is this? And that was in the final act when I think some people might think the movie may have jumped off the deep end. And I was just like, and yet, as someone who appreciated Alien Resurrection, I'm just like, did they just pay homage to that which we've already seen? Which is just like, we get this spoiler. If you haven't seen it, you may want to come back, but we get another xenomorph human hybrid, and it's kind of a little bit of a callback to the Prometheus engineer alien that we had, because it did get a call out in the film, and that was a shock to me. I wasn't expecting it, because it was so out of left field a little bit. Despite the fact that as someone who has seen all these alien movies, I know there's always you never just kill the last alien and live, right? There's always a twist. Like in Aliens, the twist is the queen is on the ship. In Alien, the twist is that the xenomorph made it onto the escape pod, right? And was sleeping. That was the twist, that she had to now figure out how to escape with the cat, save herself and the cat. Alien 3, the twist is that she is impregnated and she's going to kill her. Oh, right. I'm just saying. And like, there's always like a different alien that comes out. In Prometheus, it is the baby xenomorph for the first time, the first one that comes out. That's like the twist. So I guess I should have expected it. And all the clues were there, but I just wasn't expecting it to be this weird. And that was probably the only part of the movie where I was just like, okay, this is different. I don't know if I like it yet, but I'm going in with open minds as I'm watching the film. There was a scene where I thought this alien that's kind of growing at like a rapid pace was going to like, because it's like a baby, so it's like half human, it wanted to like nurse on like the woman that like it came out of. It was grotesque. It was weird. And I was just like, this is, I don't know if I wanted this, but like it tried something new. And I'm just like, okay.
That's what it did. Yeah. It gave us a new element. Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, I don't know how I feel, but I appreciate you tried something new.
Exactly. I applaud the attempt. At first I was like, this is awesome. And then as it went on, I was like, okay, maybe Maybe my excitement has died down.
I think for me, a lot of the excitement died down once we saw Rook, and like Rook is like I get it. Weyland-Yutani is the big bad guy and stuff, but like now it just felt like kind of
yeah. So
I don't know if I need to see this.
Let's back up really quick. Let's back up. So,
yeah, sorry, we jumped around.
So while the characters of Tyler and Bjorn are pretty much navigating with Andy, who is the main character's personal synth, remember his whole objective is to serve Rain. So he's very much focused on her needs. So he's very much in tune with human emotions because of that and how people feel about each other. They come across the fact that this Romulus ship has just been completely, like, they've gone through upheaval because of an invader that, you know, destroyed and killed everybody on board. And they come into contact with kind of like the xenomorph little spidery guys that were in stasis or something. And now they're like the face huggers. Yes, there we go. Thank you. And now they're like, what the fuck are we dealing with? So they find a formerly existing, now dead synth, and they try and take his chip out so that they can reprogram Andy to help them get out there and then also find out more. This synth that they take it out of turns out to be Rook, who is pretty much second version of the character Ash in Alien 1979. And they use the likeness of Ian Holm, who is dead, to pretty much be like, hey, look, it's just like that synth from the first Alien. And he's supposed to be the big bad. He's supposed to be the villain. We didn't need that. Because his whole thing is that we have to take this species back to Weyland-Yutani, to the corporation, and we got to finish the job, right? And so now, with his chip, which also, how is he working without his chip? But whatever.
No. Andy helped power him back up because they suspected that, like, because Andy, even though he had like information from the chip, Andy was just like, only one of us here might know more about this creature.
That's right.
That's why
and
they powered him back up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now Andy has him in him. So now his objective has changed. Now he is more concerned with the corporation,
the
with
goals
Weyland-Yutani,
of Weyland-Yutani.
And so he's like, oh, you know, the prime directive is pretty much now his loyalties have shifted. Now, what's interesting here, though, is because this is what the movie plays with the most. So, okay, wait, before we get into Andy, I guess let's talk a little bit about our impressions of them resurrecting the late Ian Holm for this movie and using this whole villain in Rook. Did it work for you guys?
I wish we didn't see as much of it as we needed to. Like, all right, fine, I get it. We were just focusing too much on his face. I'm just like, go far back. Like, we don't need to see close-ups. You know what I mean? Medium shots or
it would have been
further.
even better if half his face was just destroyed.
Or that, yes.
You know?
Absolutely.
I agree.
Well, when he was dead there and then, like, you know, he's, like, still alive and they're trying to take his chip out and then you just see it being him, it would have been great. And then, but...
Yeah. We didn't need him to come back to life.
We didn't need it fully.
Like, it could have just been a prosthetic.
But he has a purpose. He's plot exposition. How else are they going to find this out? Now, of course, did they need to know all of this? Did that script need that element communicated to them? That is something that I don't think it needed. Actually, if they were left in the complete dark and we knew, we were in on it, right? But they had no fucking idea, right?
Is that called dramatic irony?
I think so. Like, we were aware of all the Easter eggs and stuff, but like they were still trying to figure it out and making all the wrong choices because of it. I think it would have worked a little bit more. But then they got all this plot exposition. They were completely filled in. And then they continued to make interesting choices, most of them being stupid, because that's when I want to now shift to this Andy character. You know, Andy, when his directive is to serve Rain and her interests, he's very understanding. He's very connected to humans. He makes the right decisions. But then that all changes and he makes the decisions that the humans wouldn't make, which is don't let them back in here because it's going to spread or they're gone or whatever. But it's interesting, right? Because technically the film is displaying to us that when you want to help someone else or when you make a decision to go back and help someone else, it ends up fucking you in the end. Every time they go back and help someone, it makes it worse for them. So I think it's a very interesting, I'm like, what are they trying to say with Andy with constantly shifting his directives and whatnot? Because are they like pro look out for other people or are they pro look out for your fucking self?
Yeah, I remember you and one of our buddies was talking about this, and I remember thinking like, oh, that's an interesting point because you're right. Like that's true. That does happen in this film a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know, right? Because like of course the corporation is always going to be looking at its best interest, right? Not in the interest of
course it is. But also
world.
like, but you know that if you let this person who's infected back on, then you all are, they don't know this actually, right? But it has been communicated to them that if they let it back on, they're all going to die, right? So they kind of do know it. They know that what they're dealing with is really scary. And yet time and time again, they can't help themselves. They want to be, connected. I get it. We're human beings. We're frail. We don't want to say goodbye to people. But if you know that you're going to fucking die because of it, are you going to always let them back on? Is that the right thing to do?
Oh, it's a probability thing, right? Like that's what it was. What did he say? 60-40 chance against her favor. It's just like, oh shit. But I don't know. I feel like knowing us humans, we're kind of dumb enough. I mean, like I'll take those chances. I will.
I mean, yeah, it ends up being just like, like the beauty of us wanting to look out for each other, but also the stupidity of it and knowing we can't help each other in the face of like a real enemy, perhaps, which is also really sad and heartbreaking and dark. Yeah. But I also, and I just had it. There was one other thing about that I wanted to like, I think the movie was not realizing that it was saying, it'll come back to me.
Okay. Interesting point, which is true that I hadn't thought about. Yeah. That's why I think from what you were saying before, though, about like how we had this expo dump in Act 2. I think that's why Act 2 was kind of my least favorite because like a big chunk of the film was just running to get to the next place where we get another info dump. Right, where we see the rats getting squished and like what experiments they were running on these things. That's why Act 2 was kind of my least favorite act. She's like, wow, we could have just cut this whole thing out of the movie and just focus on the action.
Oh, yeah. So that scene with the rat getting splat on, hilarious. My other favorite, like, I was laughing and I don't think anybody else was when Andy's like being cold-hearted because his chip got changed. And then we do a close-up on Kaylee Spaney and she goes, "Where are you, Andy?"
Oh, I did. Oh, I laughed at that one too. It was just, Andy, are you still in there? It's just like, we don't need this.
Are you there, Andy? It's me, Rain. It was just like so stupid because it was also like, bitch, he's got another chip in him. Like, do you not know how synths work, first of all? But it's also...
you've been with him most of your life.
It's so weird because she obviously looks at him like a human being, right? But it's like, this is not a human being. And you're like, I don't know. It's like these people were stupider than they should have been.
Well, they were. I mean, that's a bonus of having like making them like be kids.
But if they were in the dark, if Rook didn't give them the plot exposition, if they didn't know what the fuck was going on, I wouldn't have thought it was so laughable.
Yeah. I understand what you mean. I get you. Yes, I agree with you. I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like this film is for sure a mixed bag where I think I ended up appreciating it more so as a fan of the franchise, and it made me like I guess like I'm like looking forward to a potential sequel if we go in this framework that it doesn't have to be in the continuity or like so explicitly connected to the other Alien movies, right? Because it's the beauty about like that's what I loved about Prey. Prey was this movie that was just so far removed from the Predator franchise, and it gave you like a breath of fresh air. And this one kind of did a little bit of that, but it was but it was also trying to just connect itself to the main storyline too much, right? Where I think it's just like it needs the freedom of not having to do that. Just go to a planet that and like let us see the chaos that the xenomorph brings out. I will say, however, in defense of the film, I think because of Prometheus and Covenant kind of diverging so much from the Alien franchise, this was kind of a return to form a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
And I think that's why this is a good reboot, though, in terms of like kind of like, okay, let's course correct a little. All right, we didn't hit the mark exactly, but like we're kind of maybe going towards the right direction. It's just like, okay, now I can say it's just like, okay. After Prometheus, I did not want to see Covenant. I didn't see Covenant, right? I've only seen bits and pieces with Eddie, and I was just like, ugh. Here, I'm just like, okay. I'm loving some of the like the camera work, great. Some of the prosthetics, wonderful. I loved seeing the xenomorph from me. Yes, right. Mm-hmm. It was just like great. You're giving me partly of what I want, not fully, but like enough for me to say I will continue on this journey with you. 20th century, I will continue on this journey with you. Eddie, we haven't heard much from you. What were your thoughts overall?
I enjoyed it. I always thought it was entertaining.
Yeah. You're so cute. I love it. Yeah, I mean, we had a good time in the theater, I think. You know, I got really excited when the character said, "Get away from her, you bitch," just because I almost won a bet. And then I realized I didn't make the bet and I got pissed at myself. I think
we
the
didn't
film
make
was
the
too...
Oh, that's right. You didn't take the bet. Yeah.
I
We
didn't
did,
take
but
the
we all
bet.
knew the line was coming.
We knew it was happening. Well, Levi didn't. He went against it. But I think the film was too excited about the Easter egg connections and it got blinded by it. And I think the CGI artists, you know, they did an impressive thing by making In Home come back, but they were just, maybe they were too enamored by it that it lasted a little too long. And I think for future, I think this was a fine reboot. Again, I kind of went in with low expectations. And I think that maybe some people who are criticizing it, maybe they're just over it and they don't realize that they're over it. And maybe they need to like let their own, you know, impressions of what this franchise should be, like, let it go. Because it's like, if you know, they're going to keep making these movies, right? So
of course. And
they need to do. Yeah.
I was going to say, inevitably, we will get another Alien versus Predator reboot.
Probably.
And hope we do it right.
For sure. What they need to do is like, look, we know what the xenomorph is, but what would be beneficial is if the characters are completely in the dark. That's what I think is going to be the next successful Alien film. It's like they can't know shit. They have to be completely blindsided by it for it to really be successful, I think.
So, you know, there's a Alien show coming out, I think, next year. It's called Alien Earth. I think this is a Hulu exclusive. It might be FX. But yeah, it's going to be. I'm to your point. I'm hoping this is one of those things where it's just like I think this is the ultimate problem right now with the xenomorph. They try to give us so much lore, and it's just like it doesn't need that. It does not need lore. It needs just to kill. It is the perfect machine. We know this already. That's it. Let it do its thing.
We know everything we need to know. Now let it do its thing. Absolutely. Although, you know, I wonder if it's going to be in like the Predator 2 vein. When it goes to California, when it goes to LA, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, it's just called. That's I think all we know is the title right now, Alien Earth. And what I'm more so hoping for eventually is like if we get an Alien film where, you know how like the colony was all eradicated in Alien.
Yeah,
I want to see a movie where we get to see that happen. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what? How can one creature lead to like the eradication of an entire colony? I don't need to see, and it's, you know, that's what I'm saying. Or it could be on a ship or something. I'm just saying, it's just like, you know, the movie itself could have been, in reality, it should have been Romulus, like how that one alien that they captured wreaked havoc and stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That would have probably been the better film.
There were some missed opportunities here, but I still think it was totally fine. We saw it in IMAX. I think when I see movies in IMAX, I tend to be more, you know, like on its side because I love.
Oh no, and the film looked great. I will say that, like, the film looked good. It looked wonderful. I think some of the space scenes, even I felt like, cause I guess we were in IMAX, right? But like, you did feel like you were just like out in space at times, right? It just kind of like my stomach churned a little bit. So I appreciated that. So again, it's not, the movie wasn't a whole miss for me. I think it's just like, okay. I'm cautious. Yeah, I had high expectations, unlike you did, right? But that's because I was like super excited because I actually did like Fede Alvarez's The Evil Dead, which we didn't cover. I only mentioned it briefly because I did watch it for the podcast, and it was good. It was a good remake.
Yeah, I never saw that one. So I had kind of no expectations other than hopefully it's gory going into it because of him doing Evil Dead. But if you ever played Alien Isolation, I hear there's a lot of Easter eggs to that video game as well. So,
our
and there's
gamer
a sequence
here
that kind of feels like a video game. There is one of my favorite sequences in the film when she's shooting at them with zero gravity.
Oh, that was a fun sequence.
Yeah. And
again, that was like one of the few times.
Yeah,
the original.
It was like big sequence built, you know. It's like, and then it's gonna go and it's going to be like this almost shootout in this landscape. Somebody described this film as like it feels more like a haunted house alien movie, you know, like they're being terrorized by things lurking in the corners and whatnot. So I thought that was an interesting comparison.
Yeah, that's a good interesting read. I've tried to play Alien Isolation, but I get too scared.
Oh, that's very effective of the video game.
Yeah. Oh, the game. It's so basically, for those who don't know, Alien Isolation is a game where you're in an abandoned space station. I think you're fighting maybe some of the humans, but for the most part, you're fighting against an AI alien, right? So the game is programmed to have like this alien just roaming around the space station, hunting you down, and you have to try to evade it.
Wow, it sounds that would be a lot of fun,
terrifying. Yeah. I always get so scared. I'm just like, no, I can't do this. I just can't.
I love that. Any final thoughts on it? Or?
Yeah, my final thoughts are just like, I kind of was hoping that the film was going to be an Alien Isolation, because Alien Isolation, the character we're following is Ellen Ripley's daughter, and I thought that was going to be the twist. It's just like, this is Ellen Ripley's daughter. It was not.
That would have been cool.
It was not. It would have been, but sadly wasn't. Missed opportunity. But maybe they're saving it for the second one, you know?
Maybe. I thought it was perfectly fine.
Doing in the box office.
I would have liked more queerness, but baby steps.
Me too. Like, but I did appreciate, I will say that we didn't talk about it, I did appreciate that the core relationship in this film was actually between Andy and Rain. It wasn't a romantic relationship. It was almost like a sibling one. And that turned out to be poignant enough for me to kind of keep my interest.
I would agree with that. I appreciated that not everyone was visibly fucking or had these romantic entanglements. Although if they made it like super dramatic and more about like people's, love triangles and stuff, and then all of a sudden the xenomorph is there and impregnating people and they're getting jealous about them sleeping behind their backs, that could be fun.
Yeah.
But we can only...
So, the film had a $108 million opening box office weekend.
Yes, it's going to do very well. Disney has dominated the box office this year. And
oh, no, I'm sorry, 41 for the weekend and 108, I think, total.
Yeah, that's international.
Globally.
41 is for domestic, yeah. So it's
still
definitely
pretty good numbers.
It's going to break even at least. So,
that's good. That's exciting. That's exciting because like I do. And I'm curious to see what the budget for this film was, because
it was 80.
Okay. It didn't feel like a 100+ budget, and I appreciate that too. Also, to be honest, like we need more of these less than $100 million budget films. We do.
I would agree, absolutely, and that's what Hollywood needs to do in order to survive.
Agreed.
Because they're putting way too much money in flops. So
yeah, and I think $80 million. That's I think a reasonable budget for a sci-fi film, and I think this one delivers in terms of that. So
yeah, same. Cool. All right, great. So next week, we have a very special episode. Please stay tuned for that, because that's going to be our live at FlameCon. You'll get to, even though you didn't attend, you'll get to actually listen in on our panel, which we had a lot of fun doing. So we hope you enjoy that. And then after that, so in 4 weeks, we'll be covering the much anticipated Beetlejuice. So we'll see how we feel about that.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, if you've made it this far, you know what to do. Reach out to us. Ways you can reach out. Email us, remakesrebootsrevivals@gmail.com. Instagram @remakesrebootsrevivals. Twitter or X @remakes_podcast. You can find us on YouTube. A couple of you have been commenting on some episodes. We see your comments. We see you. So follow us over on YouTube, Facebook too. And follow us on our Podbean. And also we have a website, remakesrebootsrevivals.com. If you're listening on a podcasting platform, please go on over and give us a rating. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a review. And at the end of the year, we're going to sum up some of our new and favorite reviews / comments that we have received throughout the year.
Yeah. I just want to say real quick, the vampire community did not like our the episode. They hated you, Nicole, the most.
Like, I know, because
when it came
because
to,
I didn't love it. Like I had a different opinion.
What was it? Interview with the Vampire. They were like mad at us for not reading the book. I'm like, guys, this is a TV, a movie podcast. I'm not reading books.
They're just a bunch of diehard fans who I guess were looking for something else. And
I respect their opinions, but respectfully also disagree.
I'm entitled to not think they have chemistry, people. Okay, I'm sorry.
But I did. I was reading these comments. I was eating them up. I was like, wow, Nicole's getting a lot of hate. Oh my God, I love it.
yeah, it was great. But no apologies. I said what I said. So
you get a lot of praise though on YouTube. I will say, like on the comments. So one episode where you were just disliked very much
by the Rice Heads. It's okay. All right. Well, on that note, guys, thank you for the comments on YouTube. If you're still listening, keep commenting, keep, sharing your thoughts. And until next time, stay unoriginal.